So I suspect that many of you have never heard of Developing Solutions, so I will give a little bit of background on who we are. But as a company that is local, we do want to welcome you to Texas. Our headquarters is about 30 minutes from here. The thing is, all you have seen is mostly rain, and it's not typically that way. Normally, we have lots of sunny weather, lots of golf courses. Not only do we have, your standard golf courses, but we have Top Golf, because this is Texas and everything gets better, okay? And I would argue that we're in fact even better than California, because not only do we have swimming pools, but we have movie stars that are kick-ass movie stars. So, but the thing that is probably near and dear to my heart is the fact that we have a number of road courses. And I point this out because I'll make some analogies about road racing and just car racing in general. But let me give you a little history about who we are and just tell you that in 2010 we started and we had developed HSS, HLR simulators along with some PCRF emulators for a number of EPC vendors. And so those EPC vendors were using our product in their lab, and we could deliver a way for them to, in essence, do some isolation testing. And they had some other tools for the other side, for example, of the MME or the S gateway and P gateway. And of course, because we do that, we had a number of vendor customers that said, hey, we'd like to use that product for testing diameter router or for testing PCRF. So in fact, I'd say that this is where most people know us. This is really where we have the biggest market share, so to speak, in that we do a lot of diameter router testing, a lot of PCRF testing. In 2012, we did really extensive enhancements to our policy and charging framework, and this is really what separated us out and allowed us to do things that nobody else can do. And over time, we've continued to add. So one of the things that Brett's going to talk about here in just a few seconds is that we've expanded beyond just testing diameter router and PCRF and all the, let's say, diameter components. And now we're into testing the MME, testing the full EPC, if you will. So as we move ahead, we're also moving into testing Mbms. So there's a whole bunch of interfaces that are kind of on the edge that they occasionally come up from time to time that are needed to truly isolate a given device. So again, ENTC is somebody that you may have heard of as well. They do a lot of public testing. This is where people know us the most for PCRF and diameter router testing. So there's been a number of big high-profile performance tests that we've been a part of. And one of the reasons that we're able to take part of those tests is because we are the only test tool that can truly scale to those performance numbers. So if you need 200, 300, 1 million transactions per second, we can deliver that. Also, just to mention that we are a completely software-based solution. So VM has been just an easy migration for us. So we run on Ubuntu, basically most distributions of Linux. And in fact, it's easy to migrate us onto the top 4 hypervisors. So again, it's a software-based solution. It's been that way. 4 years ago, we had a number of our operator customers that would say, hey, it's great that you're a software-only solution, but we need you to deliver the server too. Of course, now it's changed a lot. Everybody's talking about, oh, I want a software-only solution. But just want you to know that that's part of our history. So again, just to kind of wrap up who we are, we cover subscriber management, we cover SMS, policy and charging, diameter router, and now EPC testing. But what we're here to talk about really is testing in isolation. And let me start by saying what isolation testing is not. Isolation testing is not testing end-to-end. That's the way most people are considering it. That's the way I would say, not most, but a lot of operators are still testing by, you put some input at one edge and you measure the output at the other edge. And then when you have a problem, you go into this spaghetti mess in the middle and try and figure out what's the problem. And what we try and work with our customers to facilitate is to do isolation testing. So what is isolation testing? And I mentioned that, you know, I like cars. I like anything with wheels, in fact. But let me give you a few analogies. If you think of the modern wireless network as a race car, you wouldn't necessarily roll the race car right on the racetrack and just give it a try and see what happens. You know, there'd be a lot of performance testing that happens before that. For example, you might benchmark the engine to see how much performance it's good for, or the suspension to try to understand what is it good at, what is it bad at, the tires. These are all things that you might do, and that's what we're arguing for in terms of testing your network. So if you skip isolation testing and go right onto the network, it could be very expensive, right? I mean, you can have some catastrophes at all different levels. And the biggest really is, even if you just do end-to-end testing in your lab, the biggest waste is the time waste in terms of trying to figure out where problems occur, right? It's new stuff. You're getting new software loads from your vendors all the time. What's happening when I just test from the edge? You know, that's really what we're here to talk about, is try to isolate for these reasons. Okay, the single biggest is the cost, right? I mentioned the personnel cost, but if you think about testing a PCRF as an example, how many P gateways is it going to take you to really test the capacity of a single PCRF? Can you have, you know, 10, 100 P gateways? Or, you know, are you going to have all the simulators behind that to drive all those P gateways? So again, one thing to consider when you talk about isolation testing and being able to troubleshoot quickly is the actual cost savings that you're going to realize. The other is the direct control. So in terms of being able to, for example, test normalization, that was one thing that came up. I want to be able to toggle this, you know, bit set, or I want to add this AVP at one end and make sure it comes out the other way at the other end. These are all things that you can do when you test in isolation, and it becomes very easy to control. And then I guess the capacity and performance, to me, this is a no-brainer, that if you're an operator and your PCRF or your diameter router vendor comes to you and says, you know, this thing is good for 100,000 TPS, well, let's hook it up and see and make sure that it's actually good for that. And put some real-world type traffic, something that looks like real-world traffic to your PCRF or your diameter router, and verify that it actually supports that level of traffic and doesn't have any memory leaks. And you're going to get, again, we've been talking about this all day long, but this stuff is not, it's very dynamic. It's software that's constantly changing. The whole idea is we're going to get you guys to add new features into your network all the time, and the way to do that is with new software updates. Well, it's probably a good idea to test those software updates before you deploy them in the field. And we're giving you a tool to benchmark that in an easy fashion. So you can isolate the failures quickly, and you can do some of the negative testing to see, you know, what's really going to happen. So I'm going to turn it over to Brett. He's going to talk a little about how his team has been using our tool, and they've been a customer for a number of years now.
Thanks, guys.